Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Invest in Her's new Young Women in Entrepreneurship webinar series. The webinar series where we teach you how to be a young woman in entrepreneurship. In episode 2, we'll be meeting Esther Cho today. Would you be able to tell us a bit about yourself and your business, Esther?
Yeah, so my name is Esther. I'm a rising sophomore at Harvard, studying both econ and philosophy. I would say like with my business, just to introduce it a little bit, like me and my sister started it like right after the summer of my freshman year of high school, during the pandemic. And it's like a small little stationery business that we really grew from like just an Instagram page up until like now we are in over 40 different retail locations across the United States and the United Kingdom. And it's just been really great to be able to uplift like AAPI voices through it and pretty much just show a lot of representation through our business.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself and your business. It's great to know. So I was curious, what interests or experiences inspired you to start your business?
Yeah, so I would say like what pretty much directly inspired our business is so before we started it, my sister was like sort of like what they called like a micro influencer with like bullet journaling and like calligraphy, things like that. And we sort of had a deal where I would basically be her social media manager. And so I would outreach to a bunch of different like businesses and like different like bullet journaling accounts for different collaborations and sponsorships and things like that. And I think like working with so many different like especially stationary businesses really sort of opened my eyes to like, oh, like hey, I could kind of probably do this too. And so I think like a lot of it was just very direct inspiration from different accounts that I really enjoyed their like both their content and their products and wanted to kind of take on that responsibility myself as well.
Got it. It's really interesting to know that you got your start off of like Instagram and other social media platforms because I think it's becoming increasingly common for young people to rely on these platforms to get their voices out about their passions, and for you that was stationary. So that's really cool to know. So another question that I had was, what are some challenges that you experienced at the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey? Because I know that your business Milky and Co was quite successful now, but it probably wasn't always, this easy getting it off the ground.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, like with any like self-made like business, especially in one where the industry is stationary, where the like competition is so dense, it was just really hard to find like our true audience and really what types of products that we wanted to make that differentiated us. And like I don't think we've ever really perfected that, but I think like one big thing came from like recognizing like the different image that we wanted to portray. Like we definitely wanted to like shift towards a focus on like API representation, sort of like create that service aspect. Like I remember like when we first started out, we took like our bestseller, which was like our oops bags, which is like just a couple like slightly miscut sticker sheets and like put it together like in like a little kit. And we would donate half of the proceeds to like whatever charity we were inspired by that month. And I think just like small things like that slowly helped us like really hone in like what we wanted to do as a business, like beyond just like gaining profit and like what really our pillars were as a business versus just like a hobby. And so I think like finding those differentiating factors in the very beginning was like kind of difficult because like I mean obviously you can get inspiration from other people but you can't necessarily like use that and like directly replicate it and expect it to be successful. So I would say like really gaining like a foothold on like what our defining characteristics were was pretty difficult in the beginning.
Got it. It's really inspirational to know that not only were you able to find your niche, your passion, but you were also able to, make a difference in like charities and other movements that you care about, like uplifting AAPI voices. Because I guess it's really important for us to consider how our business can not only serve ourselves for profit, but also serve the communities that we come from. So that's really inspirational to know. So my next question was that I know that you're currently a college student and you started like doing this business when you were still in high school. So what I was wondering is, as a student, how are you able to balance your academics and running your business?
Yeah, so I think like I've pretty much been a student the entire time that I did this and it's pretty I wouldn't say that it's like difficult, like as long as you know how to delegate your work. I started this business with my older sister and like she has a full-time job, obviously. So like she had like that extra hurdle. But I think like a big thing came with like learning what we were both good at and like then splitting up that work very efficiently. So like my sister's a lot better at like marketing or she's a lot better with like direct outreach to certain vendors because she like is in the finance industry. So she's really good at like that kind of lingo that they already use and she's really good at also then like switching towards like Instagram and like making really good captions. Whereas I was pretty like a lot more like data driven and so like I handled a lot of the accounting. I did a lot of the production. And so now that I'm in college, like obviously I'm not at home, and so I can't necessarily do like a lot of the more supply chain like factors that I used to do when I was in high school. So like we recruited my parents to help out with that. And so I feel like it's really just recognizing and acknowledging certain things that like, hey, like I don't think I can design this like X many things this week. Like, could you take on like a bit more this week? And like communicating and really creating a team that like like each of you know like what each other's strengths are and like how to best capitalize on that. One of my really good friends at school, actually, her name's Elise Pham. I don't know if you guys have heard of her, but she's pretty big on TikTok. Like she has like the ultimate Ivy League guide. And so we were talking about like businesses and like running businesses in college since we both do it. And like she was saying as well, like as soon as she was able to hire a team, um, that was as driven as she was, and like she was able to like really compartmentalize her business, like it became exponentially easier.
Wow, that's a great point you make, like knowing how to play to your strengths and knowing, the other people on your team and their strengths and being able to delegate tasks in according to what each person is better at is definitely, a great way to make your small business a lot more efficient and prosperous. So that's a great point you make. So, kind of building off of all of the great points you've said so far, I was curious, what advice would you give to someone, particularly, a young girl who is interested in starting her own small business?
Yeah, I mean, I think like there's not necessarily like a perfect checklist that you can use when approaching a business, but I think like a couple things that you have to consider is A, like what are your intentions with the business? So like um I think like when I first started out, like an issue that I had was like, oh, like am I just gonna like make this like a big Instagram account and then like sell on Etsy or like what do I really want to do with the business? Because I think for us at least, like we knew that we wanted to continue expanding, like we wanted to get into stores, like maybe like in the far, far future, we get our own brick and mortar shop. And so I think like really recognizing your goals is important. And as like sort of trivial as it sounds, like it really helps you like set like intentional progress. And it really helps you drive towards each goal. I think another thing is like recognizing your audience. When like this sort of goes back to like with what I was talking about with like our first challenge or obstacle. It's like really trying to recognize and pinpoint exactly like how you're a unique and how you are sort of setting the foundation for your business because like ultimately that's like what you stand for and that's like why people want to come to you. And so like recognizing your audience and recognizing the people that you want to impact, I would say is really important. And that'll also allow you to very intentionally like market your business and like very like be able to create like an actual support system when it comes to your business and like gain customers when you know who you're trying to reach out to. Um, and lastly, like I would say like are you ready to go to market? So one of our like I guess like this was another challenge that we had, but I don't think we sufficiently marketed enough before we did like do our first drop. So it was very disappointing and very discouraging. I think like our very first day we had maybe one order. Which is pretty difficult, especially like when you're like hyping it up and up and like it just doesn't deliver. So I think like obviously like social media these days is the way that most people tend to market their products. And I think like making sure that you are like gaining that sufficient amount of hype or you are like gaining that sufficient amount of like a customer base before you go to market is like mentally easier and also just like logistically like smarter than just diving in with some random idea that you have. I think you should be very intentional before starting a business. And I think that's like, I guess like everything can um encompass like under that one idea of being intentional, like with how you approach things.
Yeah, that's all amazing advice that you gave. I also think it's, so super crucial that you do your market research, your niche, your audience, kind of what values you want to, show in your business and your market strategy, and also knowing, being intentional with goal setting so that you're able to track your progress and also being able to, keep your head up when things can get discouraging because obviously running a small business does come with disappointments but also successes if you stick with it in the long run. That's all amazing points. So I just had one more question for you. How do you hope to grow or expand your entrepreneurial efforts in the future?
Yeah, I think like so I like mentioned this, but like our like ultimate goal is to have our own brick and mortar shop. Like I think it would be really cool to have just Milky and Co everywhere. Um, but I think like smaller, like not necessarily smaller, but like our goals that like are reaching up to that point is like starting to get into bigger retailers. So like two of our probably biggest retailers, one is called You and Me Books. It's right in the heart of Chinatown, New York City. Um, they are the very first Asian American inspired bookstore in New York City. And our partnership with them like runs pretty deep. Like we designed their logo for them, like we make a lot of like of their merch for them as well. And so like just being able to continue like our sort of foothold, I guess, within our retailers would be really amazing, especially like bigger ones like Barnes and Nobles or like Anthropologie, like Paper Source, like ones that really support smaller businesses. And it would just be really cool to be able to be in a much more recognizable name like that as well. But I think also like on a more like community-based goal, it's like continuing to get into stores that are like more AAPI focused. Like I think the majority of our retailers are like usually catered towards AAPI representation. So like for example, one of them is called Rice Market. It's right in DC. It's a restaurant and a market. And so it's so cool to be able to see like different like Asian Americans being able to make such an impact and like we'd love to be even more of a part of that. And I would say like a third goal that we really have is going more international. So like so far we're mainly in the United States and like we have like one or two in the United Kingdom, but we would love to like get to places like Korea, Japan, like more across Europe, like across South America. It would just be really cool to be able to have more of an international grab as well.
Wow, well, thank you so much for sharing your goals for Milky and Co. And the team at Invest in Her will be rooting for you. I'm sure your business is going to go amazingly far. So that wraps up our interview today with Esther Cho from Milky and Co. Thank you everyone for watching, and I hope this interview too inspires you to take the jump to start your own small business. If you like this webinar, you can follow us on Instagram at invest.in.her or our YouTube channel of the same name. Thank you again, everyone, and we'll catch you later for episode 3. Bye, everyone.